My sister's baby celebration trip had just ended when I visited my parents' house. My husband's shoes were at the door. Through the door, I heard, "Sister, our honeymoon was amazing." Mother, "Did we really manage to keep it a secret?" Husband, "Don't worry, she suspects nothing." Father, "Your child is our real family now." I froze and silently walked away. My name is Linda Brown. I've been working as a pharmacist at a prestigious hospital in the Boston suburbs for 8 years. My daily routine of wearing a white coat, checking prescriptions, and explaining medication use to patients was stable and predictable. That felt comforting. I met Michael at a hospital charity event. He was an architect on the team designing the hospital's new wing. Tall, intelligent, and always wearing perfectly ironed suits, I was drawn to him from the moment we first met. Apparently, he felt the same way. Even now, after 5 years of marriage, the warmth of his hand when he holds mine hasn't changed. We don't have children yet. We both keep saying a little later. Michael says, after my career is on track, and I agreed with him. But recently, something has been changing within me. Every time I pass the newborn nursery at the hospital, my desire to hold a little life in my arms grows stronger. My family appeared perfect. My father Edward is a former executive at a major pharmaceutical company. Though retired now, he still holds strong influence in the industry and political circles. He always stands with a straight back, a man with precise judgment and composure. He cherishes conservative values and places the family's reputation above all else. My mother Carol taught English at a prestigious local high school. Now retired, she devotes herself to local volunteer activities and book clubs. She's graceful and cultured, always maintaining a warm smile. However, behind that smile hides a strong obsession with perfection. And my sister Amy was like the son of the Parker family. Beautiful, sociable, with the charm to naturally attract attention wherever she went. She works for a company handling high-end local real estate and has already earned the title of Top Sales of the Year. She lives in a luxury downtown condominium, and glamorous party photos are posted on Instagram almost weekly. Amy and I were complete opposites. Since childhood, I was known as the good girl, studious, obedient to my parents, always careful not to cause problems. Amy, on the other hand, had a long rebellious phase, caused trouble at school, and often didn't come home until late at night. Strangely enough, our parents' attitudes toward us were vastly different. When I achieved something, the reaction was as expected, but when Amy accomplished even small things, she was extravagantly celebrated. Even when Amy caused problems, she was always defended with a "she's special and spoiled" at every turn. I understood that. At least, I tried to understand. 8 months ago, Amy made a big announcement at our weekend family dinner. "Everyone, I've decided to have a baby." For a moment, silence spread through the dining room. "Who's the father?" my father asked with a frown. Amy shrugged. "There isn't one. I've decided to be a single mother. I used a donor." Although my parents were shocked at first, they quickly changed their attitude. My mother in particular was overjoyed and immediately began collecting baby item catalogs. I was happy for Amy. I thought her decision to nurture a new life was wonderful, and I hoped that perhaps she might grow up a little. Around that time, Michael started acting strangely. He began working late more often, and weekend business trips became frequent. He wouldn't let go of his smartphone, and whenever I approached, he would quickly switch screens. When I asked, "Are you okay?" he would only say, "I have a big project. Don't worry." One day in May, as Amy's due date approached, I received a call from her. "Linda, he's born. It's a boy." My parents rushed to the hospital in delight. I tried to go too, but I had an emergency at work and couldn't make it that day. The next day, I had an important meeting, so it looked like I wouldn't be able to meet the baby until the weekend. A few days later, shocking news arrived from my parents. They had given Amy a luxurious solo trip to Hawaii as a gift for giving birth. "She needs a wonderful environment for postpartum recovery," my mother explained. Amy would leave the baby with my parents and go on a 2-week vacation. Even more strangely, around the same time, Michael announced he would be going on a 2-week business trip for final meetings on an important project. "Seattle," he said. Feeling a bit lonely, I still supported his work. I visited my parents' home between my busy hospital shifts to help care for the baby. Curiously, my parents always found reasons to prevent me from being alone with the baby. "We want Amy to properly introduce you when she returns," my mother said. The day Amy returned from her trip, I left work early and stopped by the shopping mall. With a gift I had carefully selected from the baby section, I drove to my parents' home. The refreshing May breeze coming through the window relaxed my shoulders. As I gripped the steering wheel, my heart raced with the expectation of meeting my little nephew. Since I hadn't even been shown photos on social media, I couldn't imagine what he looked like. Thinking about touching the baby's soft skin and holding his little hand naturally brought a smile to my face. I wish Michael could be here too. My husband was supposed to return from Seattle yesterday. but I received a text saying, the meetings are running long, and that he'd be back late tonight. I felt a little lonely, but it couldn't be helped. I understand his career is important. I entered the upscale neighborhood where my parents live, passing under familiar street trees. Childhood memories came flooding back one after another. The place where I skinned my knee falling off my bicycle, the park where I had my first kiss, the lawn where we had family picnics. As I turned the corner to my parents' house, a familiar car caught my eye. A silver Lexus RC. It was Michael's car. For a moment, I doubted my eyes. Michael was supposed to be in Seattle. I slowed down and slowly passed by Michael's car. No doubt about it, that license plate, the small Boston Red Sox sticker on the side mirror. It was definitely Michael's car. Why? Various possibilities crossed my mind. There might have been some emergency. Maybe the project was suddenly canceled, and he returned early. If so, why didn't he contact me? With a mix of disappointment that the surprise would be ruined and an uneasy feeling, I parked in front of my parents' house. I picked up the gift bag and walked toward the door. As I approached the entrance, I noticed the door was slightly open. Just as I was about to call out, I spotted something on the doormat. Michael's distinctive leather shoes, brown Italian leather shoes, his favorites that he wears on special days. Laughter and conversation could be heard from inside the house. A woman's voice, and Michael's voice. I hesitated as I was about to open the door. Something was wrong. Something about this situation was clearly wrong. My intuition was sounding an alarm. I involuntarily stopped and listened. Our honeymoon was amazing. It was Amy's voice. That sunset cruise in Hawaii, I'll never forget it. Michael, your proposal was perfect. My heart felt as if it had stopped for a moment. Had I misheard? Don't worry. She doesn't suspect a thing, Michael's voice continued. Her eyes glaze over whenever I talk about architectural projects. Multiple laughs. Among them, I could clearly hear my mother's laughter. Were you really able to keep it a secret? My mother's voice asked. Linda doesn't suspect anything? Your child is our real family. My father's voice. Everything will work out from now on. It was better to wait a little longer, Amy said. With the baby born, her attention won't be directed this way, making it the perfect timing. Marriage to Linda was a mistake, Michael's voice filled with conviction. Amy, you and the baby are my real family. My body froze. I clutched the gift tightly in my hands and backed away on trembling legs. It felt like reality was crumbling in my mind. The father of my sister's child is Michael? How long have they been involved? Honeymoon? Proposal? My parents knew. No, rather, they were complicit? Terror, anger, and shock from being betrayed by my entire family made my body shake. But the tears didn't come yet. The shock was too great, and my emotions seemed numb. I walked down the stairs quietly, careful not to make any sound, and headed toward my car. Though a storm was raging inside my heart, my body moved with mechanical precision. Back in the car, I closed the door, and at that moment, the emotional dam finally broke. I sobbed uncontrollably. Burying my face in the steering wheel, I let out violent cries that shook my entire body. Why? Why betray me? I pounded the steering wheel, screamed, and sobbed. My world collapsed in an instant. All the people I believed in had lied, deceived, and betrayed me behind my back. My beloved husband and sister, and even my parents. How much time passed? Eventually, as I grew tired of crying, a quiet calmness began to spread within me. My reflection in the car mirror showed a face with red, swollen eyes and ruined makeup. But in those eyes, something new had taken residence. I'll pretend not to know and gather evidence, I whispered to myself. I'll make them regret this. In my mind, there was no longer confusion. Only cold anger and the will to form a meticulous plan. They ruined my life. I will ruin theirs. Lying on my college friend Jennifer's apartment sofa, I stared at the ceiling. I hadn't eaten anything since yesterday, yet I didn't even feel hungry. You should file for divorce immediately. Jennifer returned from the kitchen carrying 2 wine glasses. A man like that isn't worth staying with for even a second. Her eyes held anger. My friend's anger seemed more vivid than my own emotions. My feelings seemed to be behind a thick fog. I need more evidence, I replied quietly. For now, I'll pretend not to know. Why? Jennifer asked with an expression of disbelief. What more evidence do you need? You heard it with your own ears. I slowly sat up and took the wine glass. Jenny, this isn't just about divorce. They ruined my life. They've been deceiving me for 5 years. Even my parents. My voice started to shake, but I took a deep breath and continued. I want to make them feel the same way. But for that, I need a perfect plan. And decisive evidence. The next morning, I returned home as if nothing had happened. And Michael greeted me at the entrance. His face showed concern. Where were you? I was worried when I couldn't reach you. I made an apologetic expression and placed my bag on the floor. I'm sorry. I drank too much at Jenny's house. My phone battery died. Relief colored his eyes. I see. I got back from Seattle yesterday. It ended early. Liar. That's good. I smiled naturally. How was your day? Are you tired? Would you like something to eat? Michael looked a bit surprised. He knew I didn't cook much, but he quickly regained his smile. Yes, something simple would be nice. I'll go take a shower. After confirming he had entered the bathroom, I immediately sprang into action. I opened Michael's suitcase and examined the contents. However, his business clothes were appropriately soiled, and hotel amenities were included. He had calculated everything down to the details. While the shower continued running, I took his smartphone. The passcode was the usual one. Ironically, it was our wedding anniversary. I checked the messaging app, but there were no direct exchanges with Amy to be found. They seemed to have been deleted. However, among the photos saved in his Google Photos, I found several pictures of what appeared to be Hawaii. The dates indeed matched the period of his business trip. I need to investigate more thoroughly, I whispered to myself, returning the smartphone to its original position. The next day, after Michael left for work, I began a full-scale investigation. I also knew his laptop password. After 5 years of marriage, I thought there were no secrets between us. What irony! I opened the laptop and first checked his emails. Nothing suspicious in his work account. However, when I checked an old account he rarely used, I found a treasure trove. Long-term email exchanges with Amy. The oldest dated back 2 years. As I read through the emails, my hands trembled, and I bit my lip. The content of the emails revealed that their relationship had started before my marriage to Michael. It seems Michael was originally dating Amy, but at my father's strong recommendation, he married me. As part of that deal, Michael's architectural firm secured the new building construction project for my father's pharmaceutical company. Even more shocking were the plan exchanges about the baby. The donor was a lie. The baby was Michael's, and they had planned to use this child as a signal to transition to a public relationship. Searching through the photo folder, I found more evidence. Secret dates between the 2 ultrasound photos and a large number of pictures from their honeymoon in Hawaii. As I investigated further, I found backup data from Michael's smartphone in a backup file on cloud storage. Records of deleted messages remained there. My vision nearly blurred with anger and sadness, but I forced myself to stay calm. There was still more to do. When I examined my parents' Facebook, I discovered shocking photos. Pictures from Amy's pregnancy announcement party. Family and friends gathered there, smiling with decorations saying it's a boy in the background. And Michael, wearing a shirt that read "Future Dad" standing next to Amy. I was the only one not there. My husband, sister, and parents were living in an alternate reality without my existence. This is Jeanette, Amy's friend. Is Amy there? I changed my tone, calling with a slightly higher voice. Pretending to be Amy's friend might be risky, but I needed more information. Oh, Amy is out right now. Can I take a message? My mother answered the phone. Oh, I see. I wanted to confirm about the baby shower. Michael will be attending too, right? Of course. He is the baby's father, after all. My mother answered without any doubt. However, her tone changed immediately. Are you really Amy's friend? I hung up right away. My hands were shaking. I was stunned that my mother's voice contained no doubt about me. For her, Michael being the father of Amy's child was an obvious fact. On a day when I knew my parents were going out to a charity event as a couple, I broke into their house. The key to the back door was still hidden in the same place I knew from childhood. With my heart pounding, I entered my father's study and began examining documents. From an old document file, I found papers related to my birth. There was a truth recorded there that I had never imagined. I was adopted. It seems I was a child of relatives who died in an accident when I was 13. The Parker family took me in and raised me as their own. However, along with the legal adoption papers, there was another document. In a memo written by my father, it said, "Linda is insurance to protect our family's reputation." Searching further, I found printouts of emails between my parents and Amy. The full extent of their plan was recorded there. Michael was originally Amy's boyfriend. However, when Amy caused a certain problem that threatened my parents' reputation, they devised a plan to marry the excellent and stable Amy to Michael. Michael accepted my parents' offer for business reasons but secretly continued his relationship with Amy, planning to eventually form a real family. I collapsed on the spot. Everything was a lie. My life, my bond with my family, the affection, and even my marriage. I was merely a convenient pawn for them. Jennifer squeezed my shoulder tightly. With this much evidence, you can completely crush him in the divorce proceedings. I had just returned from a meeting with a lawyer. I had consulted about divorce preparations and handling the evidence. They say I can also claim loss of social credibility, I said flatly. Especially the part about the deal between my father's pharmaceutical company and Michael's architectural firm seems ethically problematic. At the same time, I had begun sessions with a psychiatrist to document the mental distress caused by my family's betrayal. This would also serve as evidence for later legal action. What about the bank accounts? Jennifer asked practically. I've opened a new one. I transferred half of the savings, I answered calmly. I've also found a new apartment. I can move in next week. Are you really okay? Jennifer asked worriedly. You've lost everything. How can you remain so calm? I gazed out the window. Rain had begun to fall quietly. What I lost was something I never had in the first place. My voice was quiet but filled with conviction. Their love was an illusion. But from now on, I'm going to live as my true self. While crafting the perfect plan for retribution, I told myself, just a little more patience, and I can expose everything. That day would surely come. And on that day, they would realize the weight of what they had done. One Saturday, a month later, a dinner was scheduled at my parents' home to celebrate Amy's childbirth, an event where the whole family would gather. I dressed in my usual La Good Daughter fashion, a black dress with a pearl necklace. I applied my makeup carefully, because today was a special day. In my bag, I had concealed a small recording device, something Jenny had provided, just in case. I had other things prepared as well. Ready? Michael asked while gripping the steering wheel. He had been unusually kind lately. Was it from guilt, or because he thought I knew nothing? Yes, I smiled gently. I can finally spend some time with the baby. That's right, Michael answered, keeping his eyes forward. Amy seems to have recovered well too. Hope it'll be a nice evening. Looking out the window, I inwardly sneered. A nice evening? Yes, it will definitely be an unforgettable night. Arriving at my parents' home, they greeted us with smiles. My mother kissed my cheek, and my father shook hands stiffly with Michael, as if everything were normal. Linda, I'm so glad you came. My mother held my hand. Amy is in the living room with the baby. Entering the living room, Amy was sitting on the sofa holding the baby. She was as beautiful as ever. Looking perfect despite having just given birth, her image holding the baby was like a magazine cover. Linda, Amy called out brightly. Finally, we meet. Here's your nephew. I sat next to Amy with a perfect smile. The baby was sleeping, with adorable chubby cheeks and small lips. I gently touched his cheek. He's so cute, I said with sparkling eyes. He looks like Michael. For a moment, the air in the room froze. Amy's smile stiffened. Michael coughed, and my parents exchanged glances. But quickly, my mother changed the subject. Oh, dinner is ready. Let's move to the dining room. The table was set with my mother's specialty dishes: roast beef, gratin, and a seasonal vegetable salad. I deliberately began manipulating the conversation. Michael, I'd like to go to Hawaii for our anniversary, I said while picking up my wine glass. Since both you and Amy have praised Hawaii so much, I want to go there too. Michael choked on his wine and coughed. My father hurriedly set down his glass, and my mother stopped serving the food. Hawaii? Michael said hoarsely. Why suddenly? Didn't Amy say the sunset cruise was wonderful? I continued innocently. And now that your big project in Seattle is over, I thought it would be nice to relax a bit. Amy bit her lip, and Michael forced a smile. Yes, Hawaii is lovely. My mother hurriedly took over the conversation. But with the baby being so small, wouldn't a place closer to home be better? Bringing the baby? I tilted my head. I'm talking about a trip for Michael and me. Why would the baby? Silence fell again. I was enjoying this silence. I suddenly changed the subject. I wish you had told me earlier that I was adopted. My mother dropped her fork, making a loud noise as it hit the plate. I could see the blood draining from her face. Why would you say such a thing? Her voice trembled. I became interested in it during a genetics class in college and took a DNA test, I lied. When the results came back, I was a bit surprised. My father cleared his throat, trying to maintain composure. Linda, that's an important matter we should discuss. But today is Amy's celebration. Perhaps another time. No, today is perfect, I said with a smile. Isn't it best when the whole family is together? To talk about family. I turned to my sister. Can you tell me about the baby's father? Amy looked up with a challenging expression. That's none of your business. Really? I smiled. But we're family. Michael stood up, saying, I need to use the restroom, and tried to leave the room. Sit down. My voice was cold and commanding. Michael looked surprised, but sensing something in my expression, he silently returned to his seat. When the cheesecake dessert was served, I stood up and took my glass. I have an important announcement. The family looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. My father's face showed wariness. First, congratulations to Amy and Michael, I said in a calm tone. What a lovely baby. Amy smiled nervously. Next, Mom and Dad. I shifted my gaze to my parents. Thank you for raising me. Even as an adopted child, you raised me as your daughter. Tears welled up in my mother's eyes. She tried to say something, but I raised my hand to stop her. And finally, I looked at Michael. "Thank you for being my husband for 5 years." Michael's face changed color. I took out a small laptop from my bag and placed it on the table. "I know everything." I opened the laptop and started a presentation software. All the evidence I had gathered, emails, photos, recordings, was compiled there. The first slide prominently displayed the title Family Truths. "I know everything: Amy and Michael's relationship, the identity of the baby's father, and that you've been hiding the fact that I'm adopted all this time." The blood drained from everyone's faces. They stared at me in the screen with frozen expressions. "This is part of the emails I found on Michael's laptop. You can see the affair that's been going on for 2 years, I explained flatly. "Here are photos from the pregnancy announcement party, the one I wasn't invited to." As the slides progressed, the family's expressions twisted with fear and shame. "And this is the document from my father's study. The note that I'm adopted, and the memo stating I was insurance to protect the family's reputation." "Linda, please," my mother said in a trembling voice, "there's an explanation for this. Here are the email exchanges between my parents and Amy and Michael," I continued, ignoring my mother's words. "It details Michael and Amy's relationship, and the plan to marry him to me, the excellent and stable one." "Enough!" my father suddenly shouted. "What do you want to say?" "What do I want to say?" I answered calmly. "I've been deceived by all of you for 5 years. No, my entire life. Being adopted, Michael and Amy's relationship, the baby's father, everything. Why did you continue to deceive me for 5 years? Because I'm adopted? Or simply because I was in the way?" Amy began to cry. "Linda, we truly love each other. Michael was mine from the beginning." "You shut up," I said coldly. "You had an affair with my husband and conspired with the entire family behind my back. You never had an ounce of sisterly love." Michael opened his mouth. "Linda, you be quiet too." I cut him off. "You're the worst husband, the worst human being. Your betrayal is unforgivable." I took out the envelopes I had prepared and laid them on the table. Each envelope had a name written on it. "Either you agree to my conditions, or I make all of this public," I stated calmly. "What conditions?" my father asked with a stern expression. "First, immediate divorce from Michael with substantial compensation." I counted on my fingers. "Next, my parents will transfer half of the shared assets to me. Amy will transfer to a branch in another city. And everyone in the family will write an apology letter to me and sign it in front of a notary. Or I can make all this evidence public," I pointed to the laptop. "I can send it to all of my father's business partners, all of my mother's social circle friends, all the executives at Michael's company, and all of Amy's clients." The room was enveloped in complete silence. Finally, my father spoke. "We were wrong. Please forgive us." "It's too late," I said coldly. "Trust can never be regained." Michael fell to his knees and began to cry. "Linda, please. Our 5 years together. Your acting is enough." I looked down at him. "I need written agreement to the conditions. Tomorrow, at my lawyer's office." Amy began to cry hysterically. "Are you trying to ruin my life? What about the baby?" "Accept the consequences of your choices," I answered calmly. "I won't blame the baby. He is innocent. But you and Michael should be punished." My mother tried to grab my hand while crying. "Linda, you will always be our daughter, even without blood ties." "What are you saying now?" I shook off my mother's hand. "You only thought of me as insurance to protect the family's reputation. You never once thought of me as real family." I closed the laptop and put it in my bag. Looking around at the trembling family, I delivered my final words. "You have 2 choices. Either follow my conditions or lose everything. Let me know your answer within 24 hours. I walked briskly out of the dining room toward the entrance. Michael followed me, but I didn't turn around. "Linda, you loved me," he cried out. I stopped and slowly turned around. "I did love you. That's why your betrayal hurt so deeply." My eyes were cold and filled with determination. "Goodbye, Michael. Don't ever speak to me again." Opening the front door, I took a deep breath of fresh air. As I got into the waiting taxi, I whispered in my heart, "It's over. Now I'm free." 1 year later, from my new condominium in Boston's upscale neighborhood along the Charles River, I can see the beautiful morning sun. Drinking coffee on the balcony, I took a deep breath. Fresh air. The air of a new life.